Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast, where each Tuesday, your host, Rick Sayes, gathers around the mic with outdoor industry entrepreneurs, brand leaders, founders, and enthusiasts to share stories from the backcountry, the startup files, and the retail aisles. Rick's guests offer actionable advice to land your ideal industry gig, grow your outdoor career, or plan your next big adventure. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And now, here's Rick.
Welcome back, everyone. Today on episode 355 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, Ammit Jaipuria joins me from Postcard Travel. Ammit and his team are inspiring a new generation of mindful travelers through storytelling. At Postcard, they believe responsible travel starts with building empathy and educating travelers about the people and places they visit, and Ammit is here to tell us how they do it. Welcome to the show, Ammit.
Hey, Rick. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We talked a while back, and you've been on my list to get on the show, and then Aaron Carey from Rome Generation pulled the trigger. I guess you're working with Aaron now. That's great.
Yeah. She's got an incredible story. I don't know if you've gone into her story.
Well, she's on my list. I got to get her because I've had a bunch of her customers, the people she represents on the show. So I was thinking this morning, I got to reach out to her and say, hey, Aaron, you're next. You got to come on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she has a great story, I'm sure. Yeah. So let's talk about you first. You have a great little business here, Postcard, maybe not so little, Postcard Travel. And your profile says you've been a serial entrepreneur for the last 22 years. Are there other entrepreneurs in your family? Is that where that comes from?
Kind of. My dad's been an entrepreneur. My mom started her own art gallery. So she's been an entrepreneur. My sister is also an entrepreneur.
Wow.
She has her own interior design company. And yeah, I think it's in the blood. We're dreamers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it comes from there, I guess.
That's very cool. And 22 years, that's a long time too. I was checking out Art Collective this morning. There's some pretty cool artwork on there. What were some of the other companies you started?
Yeah, so I actually finished school in 99 and then I came back to India. I was looking to sort of start something on my own in the tech space because that's when the .com was booming. And then I came across the idea of social networking, which was something that I started working on. I filed a couple of patents on it, but then I think I had a lack of experience. I think I was based in India, so maybe it was also other factors involved, but 9/11 happened and then I wasn't able to sort of take that off the ground. So then 2 years later, I started a company called Green Thumb, which was in the retail space. And our whole idea there was to sort of introduce the idea of organic gardening in India for homes, just so that it's much more safer as an environment use product range. So that kind of ran around for 3 years. We kind of had struggle scaling. So that kind of went down then. And then after that, I got into 2 other setups. One was in the agri space where I did 3,000 acres of marigold farming.
Wow.
So I really learned a lot because it got me an opportunity to engage with the Indian farmer and really learn a lot just watching them and the simplicity with which they live their lives and the happiness and gratitude that they have. So did that and then decided to get into art. And Art Collective was all about helping Indian artists, emerging Indian artists, create an alternative line of income. And so we actually print giclée, which is a very high quality canvas reproductions of original artworks. And that way we license their copyrights and then try to create a new medium, which is much more affordable. So yeah, that's kind of going on. It's a side business that is there.
It's a lot of side businesses.
Yeah. Well, the others shut down. I think we ran out of money.
Got you.
So a lot of fingers have been burned.
Yeah.
I jokingly tell my friends I know more of what not to do than what to do. So
that seems like that's what they call experience, right? What not to do.
Yes, I guess it's a nice way of putting it. Yeah. And then I got bitten by the travel bug. So that's how Postcard came in.
Gotcha. And you're also passionate about creating and empowering communities to bring about change to the status quo. Where does that come from? Is that just you're born into it, or is that a family?
No, I think it comes from my personal experience where I think I look at entrepreneurship slightly differently, I think now with what I'm doing at Postcard. But I think I always felt that startups should be done to serve people and to empower people and communities so that they live better lives. So whether it was in Green Thumb, where we were trying to sort of bring organic and safe products into the homes of people and their personal lives, or working with those 3,000 farmers so that they could get a higher income for their land, or working with these artists, right, where we were sort of giving them new forms of incomes and improve their livelihoods. So I think it's always come from there. It's come from that space. I never really thought about it, but oftentimes when I think about it now, it kind of probably links in that there was an angle there.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good too. I'm glad to hear about that because I think more companies, if they thought about the communities that they do business in, the world would be a better place. Sometimes they just don't care. They just do their thing.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
yes.
Crazy. Yeah. So how'd you get bit by the travel bug? Were you traveling a lot?
No, not at all. Actually,
Wow.
I'm one of the guys I'm trying to convert, actually.
Okay.
So I kind of obviously burnt my fingers in all the other startups that I had. So I decided I wanted to take a break and I wanted to travel. But when I was looking out I wanted to travel in a mindful manner. So I was looking out for companies that were either supporting the local community. So these could be hotels that are supporting the local community or travel designers that are creating and crafting itineraries that support and empower local people. I couldn't really find those companies because when I would go to Google, I wasn't really sure what to type to find these people. And then social media was super noisy. So that's kind of where it came from, where the idea was that what if we sort of created a whole repository of these people and brought them all together to form a community and present them so that even travelers like myself would have a single space where they could go to find these people.
Wow, that's cool. Well, I have some friends. I'll have to connect you with a few folks that I know in the travel space. You may already know them, but we'll talk offline about that. Yeah. There's a lot of folks that you guys would each benefit from knowing one another. So
that'll be great, Rick. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And tell us about Postcard Travel. Tell our listeners what it is and what you do. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so Postcard Travel was something that actually came about. So when I started Postcard, when we launched the alpha version of Postcard, it was in 2020, September. And it started off as a microblogging platform where we were thinking people will just write their own personal stories from travel and then just use it to sort of remember them. But then last year, I got introduced to the Transformational Travel Council, which is this community of amazing individuals that are all very aligned with the idea of how travel can be used as a force for good. So there are travel designers, there are boutique hotels, there are journalists and others as well. So I kind of got into that community and I started listening to a lot of people talk about the work that they were doing. And I was extremely inspired because these weren't people who were making a lot of money. They were self-sufficient. Yes, they were driven by purpose as much as they were driven by profit. So just listening to them, listening to some of the challenges that they were facing with regards to finding customers was something that I picked up on, and that helped me pivot the product into what Postcard is today. And what Postcard is today is basically what we're building at Postcard is the world's largest collection of local stories about people and place. So you can think of it like Wikipedia of local stories. But what we do is we invite boutique hotels from around the world as well as travel designers, and we ask them to become ambassadors of their land, to showcase their land through its stories. And these could be stories of people, community, culture, history, food, nature, and wildlife. And we then present these stories to our community of mindful travelers. And that's what we are building on right now. And use these stories to serve as inspirations, to learn more about their trips, as well as connect with these companies that are promoting them.
Very cool. So how do you find these people again?
So these have come through memberships that we have, for example, with the Transformational Travel Council. It's through networking through these platforms. They kind of really come across with very like-minded, very cause-driven entrepreneurs. And that's really made it much easier for us to sort of find partners that we want to work with.
Yeah, so they're connected through other groups. And then how do you choose, how do you vet them? How do you choose which tours to offer?
So I think when you come from these backgrounds, I think we ask them to sort of choose the tour, because what we ask them is, let's look at the tour and let's reveal the stories from behind the tour, right? So which is the tour that you're very passionate about, that you're very emotional about? Because every one of these tours are very immersive as they are designed. So it's very easy for us to sort of ask them for the inspiration behind the tour. And that's as our hook for the travelers. So that could be the Pashmina Trail in Ladakh, for example, where the tour is designed around the whole narrative of the Pashmina shawl that comes from the Ladakh region. Or it could be a tour around Aini, which is on the whole idea of the Inca periods, life in those periods, the philosophy of today for you, tomorrow for me. So it was all about generosity and community, and that's why that civilization thrived for so long. So interesting stories like these. So we bring those stories in. So very much the people who design with these kind of narratives in mind kind of see a fit with us. But the travel designers that are driven by bucket lists and activity aren't the right fit for us. So we sort of evaluate it on that basis.
That's very cool.
It's more it's coming from a space of intention.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm sure there's some great stories out there. I mean, how do you choose, right? There's so many stories, probably an unlimited supply of trips.
And that's the beauty, right? That's the potential of what this can become, because what we're trying to do is tell people in every part of the world to sort of just start showcasing stories of their land, right? And what we're doing by that is we're building this global database of local stories, which is then available as inspiration for people who want to kind of learn about different parts of the world. And this is beyond what you read in newspapers and magazines, right?
Right, they're probably not as popular, so you may not read about them. You have to discover them.
Exactly, which is why, because the ones that you read in magazines are the marketable stories, right? It's because there's the commercial angle involved in that. In this case, these are the little stories that are from different parts of the world. And what we feel is that it's truly inspiring, because when you get into the local lives of people, it's pretty amazing what every part of the world has to offer. It
really is amazing. And it's amazing when you we're so immersed in our retail, corporate, huge population culture, particularly here in the U.S. And then you get off the beaten path in some of these other countries and people just live these simple lives. And you think, man, I think I just want to stay here. I don't want to go home. I just want to stay here.
I know what you mean. And I think it also comes from the space of empathy. I think what it does is, when you experience these new spaces that you talk about, right? When you go in with an open mind and you're accepting of people that come to you, sort of interact with you, I think what also happens is kind of you learn from them, right? And that's probably what makes it quieter and it's much more of a transformational experience in that case.
Yeah, exactly. And you realize when it comes down to the basics of life, we are all just the same.
Yeah, we just want happiness.
Exactly. Yep. Simplicity and happiness. That's right. We're going to take a little break and give some love to our sponsor, The Running Event. I'll be heading to Austin, Texas this November 29th through December 1st for The Running Event, and I hope you'll join me. If you're unfamiliar with The Running Event, also known as TRE, it's an annual conference and trade show that brings together performance brands like Brooks, Hoka, and Garmin with local running stores from across the U.S. and even globally. It's a great opportunity for these brands and retailers to connect and check out the new products. What I'm really excited about, though, is that this year, TRE is expanding into the outdoor industry with a brand new space called Switchback. I'm going to let TRE event director Christina Henderson share a little more.
Hey, thanks, Rick. I'm glad you'll be joining us at TRE this year. So obviously, the running event has always been really focused on running retailers and brands. But especially over the last few years, we're seeing the lines blur between run and outdoor industries. Trail running and hiking have grown tremendously, and we're seeing companies like Ultra and Nike putting a lot of focus into their trail lines. TRE has always had a lot of brands that sell into outdoor specialty, but Switchback marks the first time we're truly dedicating a space at TRE to connect run and outdoor specialty.
Well, I'm looking forward to checking it out this year. If you're interested in heading to Austin for Switchback at TRE, you can find the link to registration in the show notes and use code OutdoorBizTRE. That's OUTDRBIZTRE for special discount pricing. And if you're curious about exhibiting at the event, reach out to Christina. Her email is chenderson@divcom.com. That's CHENDERSON. And that'll also be in the show notes. Now let's get back to the show. Are any of your tours more popular than others right now? Is there a place or is there an activity that people seem to be?
So we just launched on September 1st of 2022. So we're kind of still in the phase we're bringing on tours right now. We're sort of expanding our partnerships. And once we do that, once we have a core set of tours, then the promotional activities would start. But what we do also have is we have a newsletter where we are inviting individuals who are interested in just reading these short stories of different parts of the world to subscribe to the newsletter. And then we keep sending weekly inspirations as well.
And how can people subscribe to that newsletter?
So they just go to our website at postcard.travel, and then there's a button there saying subscribe.
Cool.
And you can enter your email and then subscribe.
Okay, good. We'll link to that in the show notes, yeah. And I was poking around on there the other day. I didn't see any tours in the U.S. Is this still, did I miss that, or they just haven't come on board yet? Or you have any targets you're looking for?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
I didn't see any U.S. tours. Did I miss that, or they just haven't come on board
Yeah,
yet?
no, we haven't got a travel designer from the US as well as yet.
Got you.
That's part of our roadmap now.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, that'll be interesting. And any locations you offer are your favorites? Have you been to? I'm sure you've been to some of these places.
No, not really. I'm just thinking from the tours that we have onboarded. None actually.
Wow. Okay.
But I think I have traveled virtually just through conversations with these travel agents. Right. Like I feel like I know that place already just through the stories that they're telling.
Yeah, that's very cool. And talk to us about your storytellers. So are these actually the folks that lead the tours, or they tell the story and then there's someone else that acts as the guide? How does that work?
Yeah, so the storytellers are basically the travel designers or the boutique hotels.
Okay.
Now, we have two types of them. We have the really boutique ones where the entrepreneur himself or herself is the storyteller and he or she writes these stories themselves. And in certain larger groups, or in the case of some hotels where they're great at their product, but they don't really tell good stories, we are also building a community of travel writers that are aligned with the cause and the idea of mindful travel, and building a directory of storytellers as well. And the idea being that we could then connect these hotels with the storytellers to then offer their services for editorial work.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. And you must get to hear the story and vet the story ahead of time, so you know all the details before you actually pull the trigger, right?
So we ask them to sort of, once our partners create an account, we give them access to the authoring tools. We ask them to write their own stories because we aren't qualified to sort of comment on what's local.
Right.
So we just pick, once we've kind of bought a partner on board, for us, it's all about trust. And we know that they would showcase their land in the best way possible. So we give them the tools. Once they submit the application and the stories, then we have a quick review and then publish it live.
Wow, very cool. That's awesome. Well, good luck in that. I'll check that out a little deeper. And
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and if I come up with anybody, I'll send them your way. That's very cool.
Please do. Thank you.
And so let's talk about your travel. Is there some place you haven't been to that is high on your bucket list?
That's a tough one to answer because of the work that I do, right?
But it could be high on your bucket list because you want to go share this story, right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be a place that you just want to go see.
Yeah, that's the tough one, right? So one is, of course, Botswana that comes in. I've got a chance to get to know Rob Barber, who's the founder of Golden Africa Safari. And if he's been adopted by a shaman there because there was a spiritual connection, and he talks about Botswana through that narrative. So, of course, I would love to sort of visit Botswana with him simply because I know it would lead to a much more authentic experience. And then we have a partner as far as Antarctica, which is more in the ultra-high luxury segment, where Robin Woodhead was one of the youngest people to sort of walk from, trek from east to west of Antarctica.
Wow.
And then she started this company called White Deserts. And the whole idea behind that is an ultra-luxury but sustainably driven company. So they use a lot of SAF fuel as well in their private jetliners, but then you stay at these polar pods and then you're served Michelin food, I think. And that's the experience. And they, in fact, the whole idea that they're selling there, the narrative that they're selling is the closest you can get to on being on another planet, just because of the terrain that is in Antarctica.
It's pretty amazing down there. I was down there. I was on a Sobek trip. We kind of followed the Shackleton's, well, not his voyage, but we went to see his grave on South Georgia Island and got to set foot on the Antarctic Peninsula and see the Elephant Island where his guys held up waiting for rescues. And it is like a different planet. It's amazing down there. Yeah.
Yeah. And what you said right now is exactly what we sell, which is a narrative-based travel.
Gotcha.
Right? Mm-hmm. When you talk about this person and you're like, okay, we followed his journey.
Right. And
then when you go to the places, because you have this story behind it in your mind, just has such a more immersive experience while you're there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You can actually put yourself in his place, however many hundreds of years ago it was. Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. And how about some of your favorite outdoor activities? Do you get outside a lot and hike or bike?
You're
a busy guy. You're probably working all the time.
Yeah. I need to do what I'm trying to sell.
Yeah, right. We all need to do that, right?
Right? Yeah. No, but I have a bunch of friends. I play tennis. I travel a bit with family here and there. I love going into the jungles. Luckily, I've got a beautiful jungle called Kabini, which is about 3 hours away from Bangalore. So just forest bathing over there. It's just very therapeutic. And yeah, I think what I've learned after starting Postcard is just looking for the narratives wherever I travel to.
Yeah, I love
which
that.
has been pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. I never thought about that as in relationships to travel, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love that angle that you're taking. That's great.
Yeah, I think it's time for mindful travel. I think the research are showing it. The trends that are all around us are showing it. It's still a nascent industry, but there's a lot of opportunity there where I think entrepreneurs are needed to sort of affect change at the ground level. So I think if there are people out there looking to sort of get into this industry, work for impact, work to sort of change at the local level, and do what you can if you're passionate about it. Yes.
That's good advice. Yeah, we do need to get more into mindful travel and sustainable travel because we are slowly we're overusing our planet. We got to fix that.
Yeah, it's happening though, Rick. It's happening.
It is, it's starting to happen a lot. Yeah, you're right.
We're seeing the tremors. Yeah, so it's definitely happening and it's becoming more mainstream. The bigger brands are now getting mindful of it. They're creating sections in their websites for sustainable options.
Yeah.
So I think the trend is headed that way. And I think once people start traveling in this way, they'll find it very difficult to sort of go back to the old way, I feel.
Well, you're right. Probably in a few years, it'll be the norm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where our role comes in, because for us, it's all about stories, right? It's when you kind of just showcasing stories, you give people the reasons as to why they should visit the area. And that kind of starts getting them thinking in a certain way. And for us, it's about getting people to start thinking about travel through its stories. So it has a huge role to play in making that happen.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. What's your favorite piece of travel gear under $100? Little accessory or something?
I think yeah, my earphones. It's just for the flights, and yeah, I think it helps me travel lighter and easier.
That's a good one. Yep, nobody's ever said that one. It's hard to buy them for under $100 though these days, right?
True, very true.
It might be. I'll have to look around for that. That's a good one. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners or ask of our listeners?
No, I think what we're trying to build is a space where you can come in to be inspired by different parts of the world. And all we need to do is have you visit our website and click on the newsletter and just subscribe. It's completely free and start getting inspired about the world.
That's great. And what's that website again?
It's postcard.travel. So that's postcard.travel.
Perfect. We'll link to that in the show notes and we'll get some more subscribers and I'll go down there and do the same. Well, it's been great catching up with you, Ammit. I hope to see you soon someday over here in the U.S., or maybe I'll come and see you over there.
Yeah, Rick, the invitation's always open, so please visit us in India. It'll be lovely to host you here.
Yeah, it'd be great. I've never been there. That's one of the spots I got to go visit, so that'd be awesome. Cool. Well, thanks. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend about the show. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Sayes.